Ambassador Elena Vasquez sat in her office aboard the human diplomatic station when the emergency signal came through. The red lights flashed across her desk, and the communication device made urgent beeping sounds. She had never seen this type of alert before in her 5 years as humanity's representative to the Galactic Council. The hologram appeared above her desk, showing the face of High Counselor Zarthek. The crystalline being looked more worried than Elena had ever seen him. His usually bright blue glow was dim and flickering. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said, his voice carrying through the translator. "You must come to the council chambers immediately. We have called an emergency session. All species representatives are required to attend." Elena stood up quickly. "What's wrong? Has something happened?" "The Zaphirian Empire has returned," Zarthek said. "They are coming back to reclaim their old territories. We have little time." The hologram disappeared, leaving Elena staring at empty air. She had read about the Zaphirians in the historical records. They were an ancient empire that had ruled large parts of the galaxy thousands of years ago. Most people thought they were extinct. Elena grabbed her jacket and rushed to the transport bay. The journey to the council chambers took 30 minutes, but it felt like hours. Her mind raced with questions. How were the Zaphirians still alive? What did they want? Why was everyone so scared? The council chambers were already full when she arrived. Representatives from dozens of species filled the curved seats. The air buzzed with nervous energy and worried conversations in many different languages. Elena took her place in the human section and looked around. The Valorians sat in their crystal chairs, their bodies dim with worry. The Nexari floated in, their energy fields, their thoughts creating visible waves in the air around them. The insect-like Clothara clicked their mandibles nervously. High Counselor Zarthek called for order. His voice echoed through the chamber as the translation systems activated. "Fellow beings of the Galactic Council," he began, "we face a crisis unlike any in our recent history. Long-range sensors have detected a massive fleet approaching our outer systems. The ships carry the markings of the Zaphirian Empire." A wave of fear passed through the chamber. Several species representatives made sounds of distress. "How many ships?" asked Counselor Vexani of the Nexari. "Our initial scans show over 2 million vessels," Zarthek replied. "Their technology appears to be far advanced from what our records show. They have been gone for 3,000 years, but they have not been idle." Elena felt her heart skip a beat. 2 million ships was an enormous fleet. Earth's entire space navy had maybe 300 vessels. "What do they want?" asked the Clothara representative. "They have sent a simple message," Zarthek said. "They demand the return of all territories that once belonged to their empire. They give us 30 standard days to evacuate these systems." The chamber erupted in worried voices. Elena listened as species after species began discussing evacuation plans. The Valorians talked about moving their population to the outer rim colonies. The Nexari suggested hiding in the dark matter clouds beyond the galaxy's edge. "Surely we can negotiate," said Counselor Mordek of the Hegemony. "What do they want in return for peace? Resources, technology, we can offer tribute." The message was very clear, Zarthek replied. "They want their old territory back, all of it. That includes systems where over 40 billion beings currently live." Elena listened with growing amazement. No one was talking about fighting back. No one mentioned resistance or defense. They were all planning to run away or give the Zaphirians whatever they wanted. "What about our defense fleets?" she asked, standing up. The chamber fell quiet. All eyes turned to her. Several species representatives looked confused, as if they didn't understand the question. "Defense fleets," repeated Zarthek. "Ambassador Vasquez, our patrol ships are not equipped for combat. They are for exploration and rescue operations." "But surely we have some military capability," Elena pressed. "Some way to defend ourselves." The Nexari representative, Vexani, floated closer. "Ambassador, I believe there is a translation error. What do you mean by military?" Elena stared at them. "Armed forces, warships, weapons designed to fight other ships." The chamber remained silent. Elena could see the confusion on their faces. Some species had never heard these concepts before. Others looked at her with what seemed like pity. "My dear human," said Zarthek gently, "we are civilized beings. We do not engage in violence. When faced with a superior force, we negotiate or relocate. It is the way of advanced species." "But what if they won't negotiate?" Elena asked. "What if they just take what they want anyway?" "Then we adapt," replied the Kalthara representative. "We find new homes. We survive as refugees rather than risk extinction through futile resistance." Elena looked around the chamber. These were some of the most advanced species in the galaxy. They had technology that seemed like magic to humans. They could travel faster than light, manipulate matter at the atomic level, and communicate across vast distances instantly. But they had no concept of fighting back when threatened. "What does humanity contribute to the evacuation effort?" asked Mordek. "Your species controls several systems that the Zaphirians will want. Can you move your population to the outer colonies?" Elena thought about Earth, about the billions of humans who called the Sol system home. She thought about the colonies on Mars and Europa, the mining stations in the asteroid belt, the research outposts near Jupiter. All of human civilization would have to be abandoned. "No," she said quietly. "I'm sorry." Zarthek leaned forward. The translation system may have made an error. Elena stood up straighter. Her voice grew stronger. "I said no. We're not evacuating, we're not running away, and we're not surrendering our homes to these Zaphirians." The chamber buzzed with confused whispers. Several representatives activated their personal translation devices, thinking there was an error. "Then what will you do?" asked Vexani. Elena looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of species that had never known war, had never faced an enemy that couldn't be reasoned with or bought off. They had forgotten something that humanity had never lost. "We're going to fight them," she said. The chamber fell completely silent. The only sound was the hum of the life support systems. Elena could see the shock on their faces. Some species representatives looked horrified. Others seemed confused, as if she had spoken in an ancient language they couldn't understand. Zarthek was the first to speak. His voice was very gentle, like someone talking to a child who didn't understand danger. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said, "I don't think you understand. The Zaphirian fleet has 2 million ships. They have weapons that can destroy planets. They are an empire that once conquered half the galaxy." "I understand perfectly," Elena replied. "But running away isn't an option for us. This is our home. These are our people. If someone wants to take that away from us, they're going to have to fight for it." The chamber remained quiet for a long moment. Then Mordek spoke, his voice filled with what sounded like sadness. "So humanity chooses extinction over exile," he said. "It is a tragic but noble end to your species. We will remember you in our histories." Elena smiled grimly. "Don't write our obituary yet. This fight isn't over before it begins." As she sat back down, Elena activated her personal communicator. She needed to contact Earth immediately. Humanity had 30 days to prepare for the biggest fight in their history. The emergency session continued for 6 hours after Elena's announcement. The other species representatives could not understand humanity's decision to fight. They kept asking the same questions over and over, as if the answers would suddenly make sense. High Counselor Zarthek called for a short break. Elena found herself surrounded by concerned aliens in the corridor outside the chamber. They looked at her with a mixture of curiosity and pity, like scientists studying a strange but doomed creature. "Ambassador," said Vexani, the Nexari representative. Her energy field pulsed with worried colors. "Perhaps you misunderstood the scope of the threat. 2 million ships is not a small number." Elena sipped her coffee from a thermal cup. "I understood. 2 million is a lot of ships." "Then surely you see the wisdom in evacuation," pressed Mordek. His 6 arms gestured in what Elena had learned was a sign of confusion among his species. "Your people could start new colonies in the Outer Rim. Many systems there are suitable for human life." "And what happens when the Zaphirians decide they want those systems too?" Elena asked. "Do we run again? How many times do we keep running?" The question seemed to puzzle them. Counselor Thirok of the Valorians stepped closer, his crystal body chiming softly. "The galaxy is vast," he said. "There are always new places to go. Running is not shameful, it is survival." "Not for us," Elena replied. "Humans don't abandon their homes without a fight." When the session resumed, Elena made a formal request for military intelligence on the Zaphirian Empire. The response was immediate confusion. "Military intelligence?" repeated Zarthek. "I'm afraid I don't understand the term." "Information about their weapons, ship designs, battle tactics, command structure," Elena explained. "Anything that might help us fight them." The Council's chief information officer, a floating jellyfish-like being called Quandar, activated the main display. Holographic images filled the air above the chamber's center. "We have extensive cultural data on the Zaphirian Empire," Quandar said. "Their art, literature, philosophy, and social customs are well documented. We also have complete historical records of their territorial expansion and administrative policies." Elena studied the images. She saw beautiful artwork, complex writing, systems, and detailed maps of ancient trade routes. But she saw nothing useful for combat planning. "What about their ships?" she asked. "Weapon capabilities? Shield strengths? Engine specifications?" Quandar looked confused. "We have aesthetic analysis of their vessel designs. Their ships follow classical geometric principles and show advanced artistic sensibilities. But nothing about how they fight?" "Fight?" Quandar's translation seemed to struggle with the word. "I have records of their expansion, but it was always peaceful. Species simply submitted." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "They never faced resistance?" "Resistance to what?" asked Thirok. "When a superior civilization approaches, the logical response is acceptance. Why would anyone resist progress?" The chamber fell quiet as Elena realized the full scope of the problem. These species weren't just peaceful. They had no concept of military conflict at all. War was so alien to them that they couldn't even think in strategic terms. "Let me try a different approach," Elena said. "Do you have any information about Zaphirian weaknesses, things they struggle with, problems they've had?" The council members exchanged glances. Finally, Vexani spoke up. "Their literature suggests they have philosophical debates about resource allocation," she said. "Some of their poetry deals with loneliness and isolation themes." Elena rubbed her temples. Getting useful intelligence from the Galactic Council was going to be impossible. They had treated the Zaphirians as a cultural curiosity, not a military threat. During the next break, Elena contacted Earth through the secure human communication network. The call went directly to Admiral Sarah Chen, head of the Sol Defense Command. "Admiral," Elena said when the connection stabilized. "We have a situation." Chen's face appeared on the small screen. She was a compact woman in her 50s, with graying hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "I got your preliminary report," Chen said. 2 million ships sounds like a significant problem." "It gets worse," Elena replied. "The Galactic Council has no military intelligence. They don't even understand the concept of armed resistance. As far as they're concerned, we're committing elaborate suicide." Chen nodded grimly. "What's our timeline?" 30 days until the Zaphirians reach the outer systems. Maybe 45 days until they get to Sol." "Understood. I'm mobilizing everything we have. How much support can we expect from the Council?" Elena looked back toward the chamber, where the alien representatives were discussing evacuation logistics. "Honestly? Probably none. They think we're insane." "Then we do this alone," Chen said. "Send me everything the Council has on these Zaphirians. Even their cultural data might be useful." When Elena returned to the chamber, she found the other representatives making evacuation plans for humanity. They had divided human space into sectors and assigned different species to help with refugee resettlement. "We have prepared temporary housing for your population on 17 different worlds," Mordek announced proudly. "The Clothara have offered to preserve samples of your genetic material and cultural artifacts." Elena stared at him. "You're planning Our extinction as a species. Not extinction, corrected Zarthek gently. Preservation. Your people will live on, just not in your current territories. Scattered across the galaxy as refugees, Elena said. Never able to return home. Home is where you make it, replied Thirak. The Valorians learned this truth long ago. We have moved our civilization 12 times in our history. Elena stood up slowly. Around the chamber, dozens of species representatives watched her with sympathetic expressions. They genuinely believed they were helping humanity. I appreciate your offers, she said carefully. But humanity isn't accepting them. Ambassador, Vexani floated closer, her energy field shifting to calming blue colors. Perhaps your people need time to process this news. The decision to abandon one's birth world is never easy. We're not abandoning anything, Elena said firmly. We're going to fight. But you cannot win, Mordek said, his voice filled with what sounded like genuine concern. Your entire fleet has maybe a few hundred ships. The mathematics are clear. Maybe, Elena replied. But we're still going to try. The chamber buzzed with worried conversations. Elena could hear fragments of different languages as species representatives discussed humanity's strange behavior. Is this a cultural thing? Asked one voice. Perhaps a religious requirement? Suggested another. It might be a form of mental illness, whispered a third. Elena activated her communicator again and sent a message to Admiral Chen. Council thinks we're crazy. No military support available. We're on our own. Chen's reply came back quickly. Understood. Fleet mobilization. Proceeding. Tell them we appreciate their concern, but humans have been fighting impossible odds since we lived in caves. Elena smiled at the message. Around her, the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy continued planning for humanity's peaceful surrender. They meant well, but they had forgotten something important. Sometimes the only way to keep your home is to fight for it. The session ended with no resolution. The Council would continue their evacuation preparations. Humanity would continue their war preparations. In 30 days, they would see which approach worked better. As Elena left the chamber, Zarthek approached her one last time. Ambassador, he said quietly. I have sent a message to the Zaphirian fleet. I told them that one species wishes to discuss terms rather than evacuate. Elena looked at him sharply. What kind of terms? Surrender terms, Zarthek replied. Perhaps they will be merciful if humanity submits willingly, Elena shook her head. Cancel that message. But surely cancel it, Elena repeated. If the Zaphirians want to talk to humanity, they can do it after we meet their fleet in battle. Zarthek's crystal form dimmed with sadness. I will remember your species fondly, he said. Elena smiled grimly. Don't worry about remembering us yet. This story isn't over. The Sol system had never seen such activity. Every shipyard, every orbital platform, every manufacturing facility was working at maximum capacity. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the command deck of the dreadnought Yorktown, watching the organized chaos through the main view screen. Ships that had never been designed for combat were being retrofitted with weapons and armor. Civilian cargo vessels were being converted into support ships. Mining platforms were being stripped of their equipment to build more weapons. Admiral, called Lieutenant Commander Jackson from the communication station, we're receiving updates from the outer colonies. Mars shipyards have completed modifications on 12 more vessels. Europa Station is sending us their entire security fleet. Chen nodded. What's our total count? 347 ships that can fight, Jackson replied. Another 150 support vessels. The numbers aren't getting any better. Chen studied the tactical display. Even with every human ship in space, they were outnumbered over 5,000 to 1. The mathematics were brutal and simple. Any word from the Galactic Council? She asked. Ambassador, Vasquez reports mixed results, Jackson said. Most species are still focused on evacuation plans, but she's found a few that might help with supplies. On the other side of the galaxy, Elena was having her own challenges. She sat in a small conference room with representatives from 3 species that had shown any interest in supporting humanity's war effort. The first was Commander Kreetak of the Altarian Defense Corps. His people were one of the few species that maintained anything resembling a military force, though they used it mainly for asteroid mining and rescue operations. "We can provide medical supplies," Kreetak said. "Our hospital ships have the most advanced healing technology in the galaxy. We can also offer repair facilities for damaged vessels." Elena nodded gratefully. That would help enormously. The second representative was Engineer Prime Zixal of the Technical Union. Her species were master builders who constructed most of the galaxy's infrastructure. "We cannot provide weapons," Zixal said. "Our people do not create tools of destruction, but we can offer manufacturing capacity. If you provide designs, we can build whatever you need." "What about the third group?" Elena asked. The third representative was the most unusual. Captain Veltar of the Wanderer fleet looked like a cross between a wolf and a bird. His people were nomads who traveled between star systems in massive generation ships. "My clan has agreed to help," Veltar said. "We have no love for empires that claim territory. The void belongs to no one." "What can you offer?" Elena asked. Veltar smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Knowledge. We have been traveling the galaxy for thousands of years. We know hiding places, secret routes, abandoned systems. We know things about the old Zaphirian empire that the Council has forgotten." Elena leaned forward. This was the first useful military intelligence she had heard. "What kind of things?" "The Zaphirians were not just conquerors," Veltar explained. "They were perfectionists. They believed in absolute order, complete control. Their fleets always attack in precise formations. Their commanders follow rigid battle plans." Elena felt a spark of hope. "Rigid how?" "They do not adapt well to chaos," Veltar said. "When faced with unexpected tactics or random events, they become confused. My ancestors fought them once, long ago. We survived by being unpredictable." Elena made careful notes. This was exactly what Admiral Chen needed to know. Back in the Sol system, preparations continued around the clock. Chen had divided her forces into three main groups. The first would be the heavy combat ships, dreadnoughts, battle cruisers, and destroyers that could take punishment and dish it out. The second would be fast attack craft, fighters, corvettes, and modified civilian ships that could hit hard and run. The third would be support vessels, hospital ships, supply carriers, and communication relays. But Chen's biggest problem wasn't ship numbers, it was training. Most human naval officers had never fought a real space battle. Their experience came from simulations and small-scale conflicts with pirates or smugglers. "We need to think differently," Chen told her senior staff during a planning meeting. "We can't fight them ship to ship. We can't match their firepower. We need to be smarter." Captain Rodriguez of the cruiser Defiant raised her hand. "What about hit-and-run tactics? Strike fast and disappear before they can respond." "Good start," Chen replied. "What else?" "Use the environment," suggested Captain Kim of the Destroyer Ranger. "Asteroid fields, gas giants, stellar phenomena. Make them fight on our terms." Chen nodded. "Keep thinking. What advantages do we have that they don't expect?" The brainstorming session continued for hours. Gradually, a strategy began to emerge. It wasn't conventional military thinking, but then again, humans had never fought a conventional war in space. Elena returned from her meetings with mixed news. The Galactic Council had finally agreed to provide humanitarian aid, medical supplies, food, and temporary shelter for human civilians, but they still refused to provide any military support. "They've offered to take our children," Elena reported to Admiral Chen during their daily briefing. "Evacuate anyone under 18 to safe worlds outside the conflict zone." Chen considered this. "What do you think?" Elena was quiet for a moment. "I think it's a good idea. If we lose, at least some part of humanity survives. And if we win, then we bring them home." Chen nodded. "Make the arrangements, but keep it voluntary. Some families will want to stay together." The evacuation of human children began the next day. Transport ships from a dozen species arrived at human colonies to take young people to safety. It was heartbreaking to watch families say goodbye, not knowing if they would ever see each other again. But it also had an unexpected effect on the human fleet. Knowing that their children were safe, the adult humans became even more determined to fight. They had nothing left to lose and everything to gain. Meanwhile, the Zaphirian fleet continued its advance through the outer galaxy. Long-range sensors tracked their progress as they moved from system to system. They didn't attack randomly. They followed a careful pattern, reclaiming their old territory piece by piece. Elena studied the pattern with Veltar's help. "They're being methodical," she observed, "taking back their empire exactly as it was, before." "Yes," Veltar agreed. "They see themselves as restoring natural order. They will not deviate from their ancient boundaries." Elena realized something important. Then they won't just attack Earth, they'll attack all the human colonies, in their old territory first. She immediately contacted Admiral Chen with this intelligence. Chen saw the implications right away. "That gives us staging areas," Chen said. "We can prepare defensive positions at the outer colonies, force them to fight us system by system, instead of all at once." The strategy began to take shape. Instead of making a single desperate stand at Earth, the human fleet would fight a series of delaying actions. Each battle would cost the Zaphirians ships and time. Each victory, no matter how small, would give humanity more experience and confidence. Chen divided her forces between the threatened colonies. The outer worlds of Kepler 442 and Proxima Centauri would be the first battlegrounds. If those fell, the fleet would fall back to secondary positions around Alpha Centauri and Barnard's star. Earth would be the final line of defense. But Chen had one more surprise in mind. Working with engineer Prime Zixol's people, human scientists had been developing new weapons specifically designed to fight the Zaphirian fleet. These weren't traditional ship-to-ship weapons. They were area denial systems, mines, traps, and automated defense platforms that could turn empty space into a nightmare for advancing fleets. The countdown continued. 20 days until the Zaphirians reached human space. 20 days to finish. Preparations that should have taken years. Elena sent a final message to the Galactic Council. "Humanity thanks the Council for its support with medical aid and civilian evacuation. We understand your position on military assistance. When this is over, we hope our species can continue working together." Zarthek responded personally. "Ambassador, please reconsider. It is not too late to choose evacuation over extinction." Elena's reply was short but firm. "High Counselor, extinction was never an option. We'll see you after the battle." As the final preparations continued, something remarkable happened. Humans throughout the galaxy, civilians, scientists, merchants, explorers, began volunteering for military service. They came in converted cargo ships, personal shuttles, even scientific research vessels armed with improvised weapons. Admiral Chen watched the volunteers arrive and felt something she hadn't experienced in her entire military career. Hope. Not hope for easy victory, but hope that whatever happened, humanity would face it together. The Zaphirian Empire was about to learn something that no species in the galaxy had ever taught them. Sometimes, the smaller force wins not because they're stronger, but because they refuse to surrender. The battle for human survival was about to begin. The first Zaphirian ships appeared at the edge of the Kepler 442 system on a Tuesday morning. Long-range sensors detected 50 vessels emerging from hyperspace, their hulls gleaming with an almost mirror-like finish. They were beautiful ships, designed with flowing curves and artistic details that spoke of an advanced aesthetic sense. Captain Sarah Martinez watched them approach from the bridge of the destroyer Resilient. Her ship was part of a small human fleet hiding behind the system's largest gas giant, 12 human ships against 50 Zaphirian vessels. The odds were bad, but they had been preparing for this moment for weeks. "Contact Admiral Chen," Martinez ordered. "Tell her the Zaphirians have arrived." The Zaphirian fleet moved with perfect precision. Their ships maintained exact formation as they glided toward the human colony world of New Athens. There was something almost dance-like about their movement, as if they were performing a carefully rehearsed routine. Commander Thekmor led the Zaphirian advance fleet from his flagship Eternal Harmony. He was a tall, pale being with silver skin and large, dark eyes. Like all Zaphirians, he had been born into an empire that had never known defeat. Conquest was not warfare to them. It was simply the natural order of the universe asserting itself. "Begin standard claim protocol," Thekmor ordered his crew. "Broadcast surrender demands to the primitive settlement." The message went out across all communication frequencies. "Inhabitants of this system, you are occupying territory belonging to the Zaphirian Empire. You have 6 hours to evacuate. Failure to comply will result in forced removal." But instead of the expected compliance, something unprecedented happened. The human colony transmitted a response. "Zaphirian fleet, this is Governor Patricia Walsh of New Athens Colony. Your demands are denied. This system belongs to humanity, and we will defend it." Thekmor stared at the communication officer. In 3,000 years of Zaphirian history, no one had ever refused a surrender demand. The concept was so alien that his translation system struggled to process the meaning. "Did they refuse?" Thekmor asked. "Yes, Commander. They declined to evacuate." Thekmor was confused but not concerned. Sometimes primitive species needed a demonstration of Zaphirian power before they understood the futility of resistance. "Deploy. Intimidation formation," he ordered. "Show them the strength of our fleet." The 50 Zaphirian ships spread into a perfect star pattern, their weapons powered but not yet firing. It was a display meant to inspire awe and immediate surrender. It had worked on every species they had ever encountered, but Captain Martinez was not awed. She was counting ships, analyzing their formation, and waiting for the right moment to spring her trap. "All units," she whispered into her communicator. "Wait for my signal." The Zaphirians waited for 6 hours, expecting the humans to reconsider their foolish defiance. When no surrender came, Thekmor reluctantly gave the order to begin forced evacuation procedures. "Target the largest population center," he said. "One warning shot, that should convince them." The lead Zaphirian ship powered up its main weapon, a beam of pure energy capable of leveling mountains. The weapon charged slowly, giving the humans plenty of time to see their doom approaching. But as the weapon reached full charge, Martinez gave her signal. "Now, all ships, execute Plan Chaos." 12 human ships erupted from behind the gas giant, accelerating at maximum burn toward the Zaphirian formation. But they didn't attack in formation. Each ship took a different approach angle, flying in apparently random patterns that made no tactical sense. The Zaphirians were stunned. In their entire military history, no one had ever attacked them. Their first instinct was confusion, not defense. "Commander," called the weapons officer aboard Eternal Harmony. "Multiple small craft, approaching on attack vectors." Thekmor couldn't believe what he was hearing. Attacking? But they're vastly outnumbered. The human ships struck the Zaphirian formation like a hurricane hitting a parade. Martinez's destroyer came in low and fast, launching a spread of missiles at the nearest Zaphirian ship. The missiles weren't particularly advanced, but they were unexpected. The Zaphirian ship, caught completely off guard, took several hits to its hull. Other human ships attacked from different angles. The corvette Swift delivered a ramming attack against a Zaphirian cruiser, its reinforced hull punching through the enemy's unshielded side. The cargo ship Determination, converted into an improvised weapons platform, sprayed the Zaphirian formation with thousands of small projectiles, essentially a shotgun blast in space. The Zaphirians had never experienced chaos in battle. Their military doctrine was based on perfect order, precise formations, and overwhelming superiority. They had no protocols for dealing with enemies who fought dirty, used suicide attacks, or ignored tactical logic. "Return fire," Thekmor ordered, desperately. "Destroy these vessels." But the human ships were already scattering. They had hit hard and fast, damaged several Zaphirian vessels, and were now disappearing back into the gas giant's radiation field where sensors couldn't track them effectively. The engagement lasted only 12 minutes, but its impact was enormous. For the first time in Zaphirian history, their fleet had taken damage in combat. 3 ships were heavily damaged. 1 was destroyed by the ramming attack, and their perfect formation was broken. More importantly, the Zaphirians were shaken. They had expected easy compliance, not violent resistance. Decamore called for reinforcements and reported the incident to the main Zaphirian fleet. His message caused confusion throughout the entire empire. The concept of organized armed resistance was so foreign that many Zaphirian commanders thought it was a technical error in the communication system. Admiral Zarkoths, commander of the main Zaphirian fleet, reviewed the battle recordings 3 times before accepting that they were real. "The local primitives attacked our ships?" he asked his staff. "Yes, Admiral. They used unconventional tactics and appeared willing to sacrifice their vessels to damage ours." Zarkoths studied the tactical data. The human ships had been hopelessly outgunned, but they had still chosen to fight. More disturbing, their chaotic attack patterns had been surprisingly effective against Zaphirian formations. "What do we know about this species?" Zarkoths asked. "Very little, Admiral. They are new to galactic civilization. The other council, species consider them primitive but harmless." "Harmless?" Zarkoths watched the recording of a human cargo ship ramming one of his cruisers. "No species that fights like this is harmless." Meanwhile, the battle data was being transmitted across the galaxy. The Galactic Council watched the engagement with a mixture of horror and amazement. They had never seen anything like it. "They actually attacked?" asked High Counselor Zarthek, watching the recordings for the 4th time. "Yes," replied Elena Vasquez from her position in the council chamber. "And they'll keep attacking until this is over." The other species representatives stared at the battle footage. They saw human ships performing maneuvers that no sane pilot would attempt. They saw crews choosing certain death to damage enemy vessels. They saw a level of organized violence that their civilizations had forgotten how to comprehend. "This is madness," whispered Vexani of the Nexari. "They're willingly destroying themselves." "No," Elena corrected. "They're fighting for their survival. There's a difference." Back in the Kepler 442 system, Captain Martinez regrouped her remaining forces. She had lost 4 ships in the engagement, but the tactical victory belonged to humanity. The Zaphirians were no longer advancing, and their formation discipline was broken. "Admiral Chen," she reported over the secure channel. "First contact complete. They can bleed." Chen received the message aboard her flagship as the main human fleet prepared for the larger battles to come. The Zaphirian probe had been a success in ways she hadn't dared hope. Not only had they proven human ships could damage Zaphirian vessels, but they had psychological intelligence that was priceless. "They're not invincible," Chen announced to her fleet commanders. "They're just used to winning without fighting. When someone actually fights back, they don't know what to do." The news spread through the human fleet like wildfire. Morale, which had been grimly determined, suddenly became genuinely optimistic. They were still vastly outnumbered, but they were no longer facing an unstoppable force. Admiral Zarkoths, meanwhile, was dealing with the first military crisis in Zaphirian history. His advanced fleet had been mauled by a handful of primitive ships using tactics that violated every principle of civilized warfare. "Sir," reported his chief tactical officer, "the main fleet is requesting new battle protocols. Our current formations may not be effective against these unusual tactics." Zarkoths stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there, a species of warriors was preparing for battles that would make the Kepler 442 engagement look like a minor skirmish. For the first time in 3,000 years, a Zaphirian admiral wondered if his empire might actually lose a war. The galaxy was about to witness something it had never seen before. Total war between 2 species that refused to surrender. The final battle began at dawn on Earth's eastern seaboard. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Yorktown, watching as the largest fleet in galactic history emerged from hyperspace around the Sol system. 2 million Zaphirian ships formed, perfect geometric patterns against the stars, their hulls gleaming like deadly jewelry. Chen counted her own forces for the last time, After weeks of fighting through the outer colonies, humanity's fleet had been reduced to just over 200 combat-capable vessels. Every other human ship was either destroyed, too damaged to fight, or protecting the evacuation routes where human children had been taken to safety. "Admiral," called Commander Jackson from the communication station, "we're receiving a message from the Zaphirian flagship." The main screen flickered, showing the face of Admiral Zarkoths. The Zaphirian commander looked tired and confused. The weeks of brutal fighting had worn down his forces and his confidence. "Human commander," Zarkoth said through the translation system, "I offer you one final chance to surrender. Your species has fought bravely, but this ends now. Lay down your weapons and accept exile. I give you my word that your people will be treated with respect." Chen studied the alien face on the screen. Zarkoth's was sincere. He genuinely believed he was being merciful, but mercy and surrender were luxuries humanity couldn't afford. "Admiral Zarkoths," Chen replied, "I appreciate your offer, but my answer is the same as it's been from the beginning. If you want our home, you'll have to take it from us." The transmission ended, leaving the two fleets facing each other across the void. Chen activated the fleet-wide communication channel. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Today we fight the final battle for human freedom. I won't lie to you, the odds are terrible. But we've been defying terrible odds since this war began." She paused, looking out at the earth hanging like a blue jewel against the darkness. "Behind us is everything we've ever loved. Our families, our history, our future. The Zaphirians may have superior numbers and technology, but they've forgotten something important. They don't know what they're fighting for. We do." Throughout the human fleet, crews made final preparations. Weapons were charged, armor sealed, and last messages recorded for loved ones who might never hear them. Elena Vasquez watched the battle preparations from the Galactic Council chambers, where representatives from dozens of species had gathered to witness humanity's final stand. The atmosphere was somber, like a funeral that hadn't quite started yet. "The humans cannot possibly win," whispered Mordek of the hegemony. 200 ships against 2 million. The mathematics are impossible. "Mathematics don't account for everything," Elena replied quietly. High Counselor Zarthek approached her position. His crystal form was dim with sadness. "Ambassador, I want you to know that the Council will preserve humanity's memory. Your species' courage will be remembered." Elena smiled grimly. "Don't plan the memorial service yet, High Counselor. Humans are full of surprises." The battle began with the Zaphirians doing what they had always done, advancing in perfect formation with overwhelming force. Their fleet moved like a vast mechanical organism, every ship in its designated position, every movement precisely calculated. But Admiral Chen had learned from every engagement in the war. She knew the Zaphirian strengths and weaknesses better than they knew themselves. "All ships," she commanded, "execute Plan Prometheus." The human fleet scattered in every direction like an exploding star. Ships that had been in loose formation suddenly accelerated toward different points around the Zaphirian armada. It looked like panic, like a desperate attempt to escape certain death. But it wasn't panic. It was the most complex battle plan humanity had ever attempted. Captain Rodriguez in the cruiser Defiant led the first wave, diving straight into the heart of the Zaphirian formation. Her ship was surrounded by enemy vessels within seconds, but she kept flying, targeting command ships with everything she had. Behind her, the destroyer Ranger followed a completely different course, attacking the Zaphirian fleet's left flank with a spread of nuclear missiles. The corvette Swift came in from below, targeting engine systems with precision strikes. The Zaphirian fleet tried to respond, but their perfect formations worked against them. Ships couldn't fire without risking friendly fire incidents. Commanders couldn't coordinate when human vessels were weaving through their ranks like angry hornets. Admiral Zarkoths watched in growing horror as his magnificent fleet began to come apart. Human ships were everywhere, attacking from impossible angles, using tactics that made no sense according to military doctrine. "Sir," called his tactical officer, "the humans are using kamikaze attacks. 3 more of our ships have been destroyed by ramming." Zarkoth stared at the battle display. Red icons representing destroyed human ships were scattered throughout his formation, but each one had taken Zaphirian vessels with it. The humans weren't just fighting, they were trading their lives for strategic advantage. The battle raged for 6 hours. Human ships fought with desperate creativity, using everything from guided asteroids to improvised chemical weapons. They rammed Zaphirian cruisers with cargo ships full of explosives. They used communication satellites as kinetic weapons. They turned their own damaged vessels into guided missiles. But the most devastating moment came when Admiral Chen made her final decision. The Yorktown was heavily damaged, her weapons mostly offline, her crew down to a skeleton shift. Around her, the human fleet was being ground down by superior numbers. They had inflicted enormous casualties on the Zaphirians, but they couldn't win through attrition. "Admiral," called Jackson, blood running down his face from a head wound. "Main engine is critical. We've got maybe 10 minutes before she blows." Chen looked at the tactical display. The Zaphirian command ship Eternal Dominion sat in the center of their formation, directing the battle. It was heavily shielded, surrounded by escort vessels, and seemingly untouchable. "Set collision course for their flagship," Chen ordered quietly. "Ma'am?" "You heard me. All power to engines. Signal the fleet. Tell them to remember what we're fighting for." The Yorktown turned toward Eternal Dominion like a dying comet seeking the sun. Chen activated the ship-wide communication system. "This is Admiral Chen. It has been my honor to serve with all of you. Humanity will remember this day. Make sure they remember it fondly." The Yorktown accelerated toward the Zaphirian flagship, her damaged engines leaving a trail of plasma fire across space. Zaphirian ships tried to intercept her, but the other human vessels threw themselves into the way, clearing a path with their own destruction. Admiral Zarkoths saw the human flagship approaching and finally understood what he was facing. These weren't just warriors. They were a species willing to sacrifice everything for their beliefs. "Evacuate the command section," he ordered desperately. "All ships, stop that vessel." But it was too late. The Yorktown struck Eternal Dominion at relativistic speeds, and both ships disappeared in a ball of nuclear fire that lit up the entire solar system. The explosion marked the turning point of the battle. The Zaphirian fleet, already shaken by human tactics, began to break apart without their command ship. Individual captains started making their own decisions, formations dissolved, and coordination collapsed. Captain Martinez, now the senior human officer aboard the destroyer Resilient, took command of the remaining human ships. "All vessels," she broadcast. "Admiral Chen bought us this chance, let's not waste it." The final phase of the battle was unlike anything in galactic history. The Zaphirian fleet, vastly superior in numbers, but leaderless and demoralized, began to retreat. Ship after ship broke formation and jumped to hyperspace, fleeing from an enemy that should have been annihilated hours ago. The retreat became a rout. Within 2 hours, the mighty Zaphirian armada was gone, leaving behind only wreckage and the impossible truth. They had been defeated by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Elena watched the aftermath from the council chambers, where the alien representatives sat in stunned silence. The battle displays showed scattered debris and triumphant human ships limping back toward Earth's orbit. "They won," whispered Vexani of the Nexari. "Somehow they actually won." "How is that possible?" asked Mordek. "The numbers were impossible." Elena stood up slowly, feeling exhaustion in every bone of her body. Around her, the most advanced species in the galaxy struggled to understand what they had witnessed. "They won because they refused to lose," Elena said simply. "Because when someone threatens your home, your family, your future, you don't calculate odds. You fight." High Counselor Zarthek approached her, his crystal form now bright with amazement rather than sorrow. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "I believe we have much to learn from humanity." Elena looked out at the stars where human ships were beginning the long process of recovering their dead and rebuilding their fleet. "High Counselor," she replied, "I hope you never have to learn the way we did." In the weeks that followed, the Zaphirian Empire sued for peace. Their remaining fleet limped back to the Outer Rim, where they began the process of accepting that their age of expansion was over. They had encountered something they had never faced before, a species that would rather die than surrender.